and welcome to this weekend special of the Intel Brief. Today I'm joined by Brad from Warsaw.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just like I said, battling some kids right now. I'm on dad duty. Got a one that's just about to be three, and the other one's a year and a half. So I'm in the trenches right now.
That is definitely, high stress times.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wasn't ready for this, so crash course. But I think I got a system down now.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah. Um, and I don't know. Do you want to tell everyone about yourself? What's your background?
So obviously, like I have war shorts. It's mostly military based content. That niche. So I did serve in the military. I was in the army. I did 6 years in there. I got out in 21. So had a full time job. I didn't. I was at that point where it was like I was a reservist, so wasn't doing anything. Like I said, shout out to the guys that actually, did some great things. Did a few things, but nothing like that. So I was just, law enforcement full time. So like I just, I'm very busy with what I do. Obviously with having your own life, and I just at that time I was like, I just don't see this continuing. I thought about doing the like commissioning and going through that route. Coworker of mine's actually he's a captain. Last I checked, he was a captain in his own company. He's a pilot, so he loves it. Just was my situation at the time. Called it quits. So law enforcement full time. And I just kind of this account just kind of happened. So
Yeah, fair, fair.
so just trying to navigate. When I started it, it was very well. Let me. I'll take a step back. I got to give props to. I don't know if you're familiar with the page Waraholics.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen it around.
It was just super random. Got a chance to admin the page I have now. I think it was like 40, 50,000 followers. So I didn't create it on my own. So I definitely have to, give the shout out props. He's been an asset. Um, I took over. I mean, I own the page now. Just doubled it in size. So, but it was trial and error. Like I'm not a big social media guy. Like my personal accounts. I don't post anything. Just I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes I'll doom scroll and just you're bored, you just laugh at stuff. But everything about this is every day I'm learning, and just growing it and trying to see where I can go.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like my background is in intelligence, so social media is a very unnatural thing for Intel people
Yeah,
to do, right? So having to learn to be more open and like talk about things is a massive step in like direction.
oh
Um,
yeah.
just go back to your background. How have you found the difference between like army reservist and police? Like they're two
Uh,
interesting roles.
Hopefully nobody hates me. So I was a typical like I had I played college football. I was a dumb jock. I mean, I did good I had good grades. I did good in school. It was just like my focus. I played football in my life. My background, I grew up pretty poor, right? So like football was that avenue for me to get to college, and that was my vessel. That was life. Once that ended, it wasn't obviously didn't go further than that. I always wanted to do law enforcement. But back then, and this would have been like 2008, 2009, or excuse me, about 2011. And, it was very hard to get in law enforcement because there wasn't the things that are going on today. So, it's just like, hundreds of applicants for one position. So, getting turned down, have no experience, nothing. So went into the military. So, yeah, I didn't know anything. I have no. My grandfather's in the military, but you can't just go to him. He's no longer here, but talk to him. So I went into a recruiter's office, and they're like, "Hey, we got this awesome contract. You're going to be an MP," and I'm like, "Great!" So, I did have a degree. I should have won OCS. Just kind of got sucked into that recruiter thing. But obviously basic training, everything, and went to the reserves. Like I said, at that time, I got into law first. It kind of happened like simultaneously. So just didn't want to dedicate full time to military and go active because I had a full time thing back here. Um, so I didn't do like I have absolutely no combat experience. I was an MP. Definitely tried to sign up for those PSD schools, those anything that you can get me over there, get some experience. It comes down to reserves of funding, or you're not, your unit just doesn't get selected for anything. But I went to Guantanamo Bay, which is the MP recycle. Everyone goes there, but I did a pretty cool rotation there. I was at Camp 7, which is everybody is so everybody is familiar with it, but so that's where they house the 911 5. So got a very, I mean, I dealt with them every day. Like the guys who carried out everything, the attack and all that. So it was definitely a very big shock. It's like you just kind of build this relationship with them, like I hate you,
Yep.
you hate me, but like let's work together. So a year of that, it's weird. I mean, it's hard to describe because it's a this different style. Like it's not combat. You're not fearing for your life or anything. It's just like this more of a mental game. Things that they do, and then you got to worry about your unit, like things you're allowed to do, things you can't do. So, but it was a prison setting. I didn't like it. That's not what I wanted to do. But in law enforcement, I worked for started with a city department, and big drug guy, big drug unit, interdiction. Like I'm not the guy that's like, oh, I'm gonna stop you because you want 10 over, and I just
Yeah.
don't worry about that. So with that line of work, I mean, it gets dirty. There's a lot of things that can happen. So it's hard for me to compare because I just didn't have that experience as most guys, especially in this, like we see on Instagram with this niche. There are guys that have done some badass stuff, and great guys. So like my experience is just different. So for me,
Yeah.
law enforcement, you know, every I was involved in a shooting in 2018. Like it gets very real very quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
So
imagine.
it's just so my I think it's obviously a dangerous job. I love it. I mean, it is what it is. But most of my experience is in law enforcement. And a lot of guys in the military and law enforcement. So you end up kind of building this brotherhood with those guys.
Yeah.
Whether it's a search warrant. It's kind of the same thing. You do a search warrant. You have your briefings. Your game plan. Your essentially your sandbox or sand table. So a lot of the things that you learn in the military are also carried over into law enforcement, just in a different fashion. So it kind of went hand in hand.
That's pretty interesting. Would you recommend it as a good career for people leaving the military?
Yeah, I think that's the closest thing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I mean it's still a profession now. Granted, law enforcement. I mean, I've been in for 8 years now, and law enforcement has changed. Obviously it it ebbs and flows with the society, like whatever's going on. But there's this new generation of, and it's just a new generation of cops, right? Like the younger guys, there's a lot more feelings involved, at least personally from what I've seen. So like in the military, you can say whatever. It's just like some of the jokes are outrageous, like the pranks. It's kind of gone now. You kind of like have to watch what you say because you'll get written up. They won't say, nobody's going to call you out and like, hey, I don't like that. They'll just go to the administration. So it's kind of hard now. Hopefully it changes. Hopefully it goes back. But like you go out and let's say you stop a car, you make a great arrest. Well, there's gonna at the back of your mind, you're like, all right, well, most likely they're gonna file a complaint because they're arrested, or and you have to worry about the legal proceedings, which is it's all part of it. It's normal. But then it's like Monday morning quarterback. What did you do wrong, or did you not do
Yeah.
this right? And it's so you have to worry about whatever you have to worry about on the street, your safety, and then it's like a couple days later when the administration reviews everything, hey, did you do everything right? So and that makes a lot of guys burn out,
Yeah.
honestly.
There's a
So a
lot of
lot of the
stress.
guys, especially these old guys, these older guys that are like in that retirement area, where it's changed how many times since they started, and they don't do anything. And
Yeah.
it's hard to teach those guys what to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
And
mean, it's a great career. I mean, I think it all depends on what state, what department. I mean, it literally can make or break you if you went to a bad. And it's hard to discover until you're actually in. But there's so many avenues you can go. Obviously start patrol the ground level, but you can attach with the marshals, ATF. Like I do a lot of that stuff. Obviously SWAT. I mean, it's just a lot of things that military all the training you receive and the thing you experience, I mean, you can carry that right over.
yeah, because people, a big thing I've noticed and have experienced with people leaving the military is the lack of purpose. Like when they get out, like when you're in the military, you're working for this like higher purpose, right? There's always that bigger thing you're working towards, and then you leave and you lose that sense of purpose. So can see
Yeah,
the police having that a much similar role and definitely being helpful, but also with the, as you say, how policing is now, I feel like there would be some things that probably wouldn't carry over too well, such as like levels of aggression and like things
yeah.
like that, especially
Well,
within
also
combat
too,
trades.
now, I mean, and obviously, like the background process, and I can only speak from where I'm at. Like, it's pretty, rigorous. I mean, obviously, you open up everything about your life, and I see guys that have this military experience that, were over in Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever, and did things that it's just part of what you had to do out there, and then that, you know, come
Blemishes
back
their role.
stateside, and and then it just like, hey, well, you did this over there, or you said this, and like that just doesn't align. And it's like,
Yeah,
to me, I just think that I think that's terrible because you're being judged by people that most of the time the people that are judging you or in administration or these polygraphers have never seen it or experienced anything like that. So you know obviously there's things that happen that guys bring home, and but that's with anything, but it sucks to see that. But for the most part, I do think that this field, and not even just policing, anything in law enforcement, corrections, or probation, or anything. I mean, that's definitely there's so many military members in this field. So I think if you find that right department, yeah, it's definitely a great transition.
so coming from New Zealand, our policing is set up very differently to how your guys is. Because like in New Zealand, we have one police force, right? So there's just when you
Yeah.
join the police, it is one. So like in the US, it's broken like there's federal and then state and then like county. Like
Yeah. So
how
that's like
broken up is it?
that. So that is so that's just the nuts and bolts, right? Yeah. So you have federal, state, local, but I'm in Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, and it's a Commonwealth state, and it's crazy, right? So you have borough police, you have township police, you have city police, you have regional police, state police, and then you have like the Attorney General office that have police. You have the obviously like the ATF that has their guys. Like ICE has their guys here. I mean, it's just so many things. Like like so like Philadelphia and like our Washington D.C. They have transit and metro police. That just deal with the railway. We have actual railroad police. So
Yeah,
it gets crazy, and a lot of these departments are like very small. So you'll have a city that has like like 100. Let's use Philadelphia. Philadelphia, it's a massive city, so you're going to have hundreds of cops. But then you start venturing out, and then you can go to these like suburban areas that are probably manned of like 10 guys, and then you have these departments where like in the podunks or the hillbilly area that have 2 guys, and that's their entire police force. Like I know a lady I used to work with. She retired, and she's a chief of police. She's literally the whole force. She's the chief of the force, and that's it. That's her. Like she responds through Facebook. So it's crazy here.
yeah, yeah. It's so interesting. Like how jurisdictionally that must just be nightmarish to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and it just depends on your relationship with your, I guess whoever your border, because we do have those agencies, and I'm not going to name them, that will not go outside to help. That's just
Yeah,
how it is from the chief. Say like and liability. Liability is a huge thing in this field, and I get it, but then I think sometimes like this word liability scares people. So, you know, but if you roll like, we're literally divided in some places by the double yellow line on a street. Like, you can have a
yeah,
northbound lane, and that's your township or your city, and then that southbound is a completely different jurisdiction. So you can see something that you want that's on the other side, like for example, accidents are the biggest thing. You have to ask the dispatch, hey, this happened northbound or southbound or eastbound or westbound, and then all right, it's on this side, it's
it's
theirs.
just
Yep.
it sounds like it just slows stuff down. right? Like,
It does, and then you know how like it is. You kind of look bad in the public's eyes because you
they
just
don't
like
care.
yeah, obviously if it's a serious like I hate to use accent, but it's the most common thing. If it's serious, like obviously you're going to render help and you're going to do what you can. But for the most part, if it's just like a fender bender or something, you're just sitting there, and you're like,
Yeah,
you got to tell them like, listen, I can't do anything because you're not allowed.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
yeah.
do it. We got to wait till this department gets here. So I'm there sometimes, or our department would be there for like
You're like,
20
sorry,
minutes
but
until yeah. I'm just staring at your mangled car. You're upset, and I'm just sitting in my AC. But that's unfortunately like sometimes I mean I'll get there information. I'll do as much as I can, but we
yeah,
can't do anything as far as reporting wise or starting our investigation. But so
yeah, that
unless
makes
it's like
sense
a
because like, what are
felony,
you gonna write? Right? They're gonna be like, oh, this
yeah.
other place, and then they're just gonna have to redo all the work anyway. So
Well, it comes down to like UCR, which is like their, the stats of like, yeah, this is bigger than me, but I guess with like just uniform crime reporting. So, how many calls did this township or this city get? And then that obviously that comes into funding and,
okay,
so
okay.
it's a nightmare. Obviously, I grew up in this area, like I knew what it is. So, but I can imagine what it sounds like to somebody that's not even in this country.
To me, absolutely mind blowing, right? I currently live in London, and like, I find it funny that there's like a couple of different police here. So like, that to me is hilarious because in New Zealand it is just police. They
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you annoy them in any regard, they're going to annoy you. So yeah,
I've been I like to travel, so I've been to obviously flying in Heathrow for every flight in Europe, and being there, like I've been to obviously being a cop, you just look at their other cops, and you see like I was in Scotland, I'm like, they all look the same, it's like that bright
yeah,
yellow that want to be seen, whereas here it's just like ghost cars, like blacked out stuff, unmarked, and it's just a different way. Like I was in Iceland, and from what I was told there, like they only have like I think they have their gun is in a lockbox in the car, and they have to actually
yeah.
get approval to use it.
It's the so in the UK, it's you have to have. Sorry, um, it's like there's firearms police and normal police. So if it's a normal cop, that's nothing. They won't have a gun at all, and they don't have access to a gun.
Yeah,
So you would have to have specialized police to come if there was a firearm required. And with the amount of
that's
knife crime in London, like
well. I mean, I haven't been to London in a few years, but from what I see, it is
I mean, it's
crazy.
not much like everything. It's not as bad as it seems on social media, right? Like, I've never had an issue walking around London, and I've lived here for 4 years. So, like,
So what not to ask you questions, but like what is contribute like obviously I think we all kind of know what's going on there. But like what is the main like
I think it's
what in your opinion what's the main cause for all this?
just lack of opportunity. I think it's just like these young, disaffected, like immigrant children, and then also like white British as well, growing up in like poor neighborhoods in London, having like if you're lower educated or like you don't have a great background, your chances of like surviving in London are pretty minimal. Like the cost of living here is about it's like twice the price of everywhere else in the country. So if you're growing up on an estate in London, you know you're screwed. You know as soon if you leave social housing, like it's all over. So you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, I mean I'm sure obviously everyone follows the US. I mean you see like the housing crisis here, the cities are getting worse. I mean even the nicer areas are starting to get worse. I mean it's just I feel like that's a trend just happening worldwide now in some of these
Yeah.
obviously the
So
US has its issues.
it's definitely a because I write about like issues all over Europe and the world. It's definitely a world issue. It's like no country is building fast enough. No developed nation, let's say, is building fast enough for population growth and like urbanization. Um, yeah, it's definitely a wider issue. Like you get the same issues in Germany and France. Um, yeah,
Yeah, when I so like the last place I've been, like I said, my life is gotten pretty busy here with kids, and
Yes, it does.
so my time, my leisure time is gone for now. But I was in Scotland. That's the last place I've been. Was during COVID. I actually
Oh shit.
was I got locked down in London, actually at the airport, which was crazy because I thought I was going to be stuck there. And they,
Yeah.
gave us the oldest plane in the fleet that still had like VCR, and they only, sitting there and they're like, only Americans are boarding this plane. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
creaking down the runway, um, but from that time on, I mean, there was like, you could walk around Scotland, obviously
Mm.
it was a tourist thing, it's like, but had no issues. I mean, Sweden, same thing. Iceland, yeah, obviously it's one of the safest countries. But now looking, like especially Sweden,
So
I actually was there when they started having like some of the Syrian refugees come in. I actually would, you seen them, and that was just kind of at the height of it. But they look completely different now.
it's definitely location based, right? And like it's always something because like living in London and seeing how London is portrayed online. Um, Something I always try and remember is like most people, if you are there, it isn't as bad as it seems. Like I've traveled around Scotland not so long ago, and like certain parts of Scotland, definitely but certain parts of Scotland have been like one of some of the worst parts of Europe in the past. Like, and this has nothing to do with immigration. Like, these are just hangover from like drug abuse and like other
Yeah,
societal issues. And then like Sweden's the same. Like Sweden's is definitely an immigration issue, but like if you were to go to Stockholm, right? Stockholm's one of the loveliest cities on earth,
yep.
and like you're perfectly safe. And then you go to other cities in Sweden, and there's like people shooting AKs and blowing like IEDs up.
I
So
remember when, so, and that's definitely true. When I was in Sweden, I stayed, I think, like 2 days in Stockholm. I flew in there, and did the touristy thing, got it, rented a car, drove all over. It ended in Uppsala, and I noticed in Uppsala there was a lot of food truck vendors, like, that were immigrants, and it was just it was just kind of like, it was like almost like a U.S. city in a way. Just, it was loud. There was a lot of vendors and stuff, and it's definitely a completely different vibe from Stockholm.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And like I mean, Sweden's another place where it's like if you didn't grow up in that society with those opportunities, like because they're like quasi socialist states, right? They have high tax but high benefits, so their tax rates are exorbitant, like 50 to 60%. But then it's like university's free, so like
Yeah,
the and if you grow up in that society, it seems perfectly fine because your kids are reaping the rewards, you've reaped the rewards. But if you show up as like a middle aged immigrant and it's like, well, I'm also getting taxed 60%, like,
yeah,
yeah, um,
yeah. I don't
it's
think I
tough.
could. I don't think I'd do well there.
No, that's, I don't think many people move like to the Scandinavian countries because of that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like the cost of living. Like I think Norway, for example, put up their tax rates on like the higher ends of society, hoping to raise like hundreds of millions from their like ultra wealthy. And most of them just left the country and they end up losing like double what they hope to gain in taxes because all of their ultra wealthy just immigrated to Dubai. Um, so that they have their challenges.
Yeah, and it's hard for, I mean, I can't speak on other countries. I like to travel. I love to, kind of embrace, the culture, try the foods. I have no idea where are that what they are. Just talk to locals. Like I'll walk around by myself, and I'll go into places. Obviously, like I'm a big dude. I stick out. I'm a big American, so everybody wants to, hey, try this, try that, and
Yeah,
so it's awesome. I've had nothing but great experience. Haven't had a bad experience, and knock on wood. But in America, this is normal. The things that you see on the news, I can imagine from a perspective of, an outsider of like, wow, it's actually, it's crazy there. And it is. I mean, it's just like you look at these cities, obviously, Chicago, Memphis, St. Louis. I mean, these are just stuff that like you just hear about. And, I've been to these cities and you see it, but it's just kind of like just normal. It's and I hate to say
Yeah.
that, like it's not, but it's just you're kind of conditioned to it. It's the same thing every year.
I on one of my deployments, I was served with a guy who was a Chicago cop, he was a reservist intel dude, and was deployed with us. And his stories were crazy. Like, and like they had to buy they had to buy their own guns.
Oh,
And I was like to me that seems crazy, right? He was like,
it
yeah, so
is. It
like
is.
they have their own like assault rifles and stuff in their cars, and it's just like, all
Yeah, I
right,
know some agents, and that's. I mean, if you have to buy your gun because they can't give you a gun, that's a problem. But I know like some agencies will, you can, for example, like if I wanted to bring my own, build a rifle and just have to qualify it, use the department's ammo, and because
yeah,
obviously if you were to use it, then it, once again, liability. You can't, have your
you
own
can't be
modifications to it. It's
can't
got
be
to fit
firing
this.
like 7.62 at people without.
Oh man, yeah, I had a scar. I was like, man, let me load this thing up. It's
Yeah,
308 in
yeah,
here.
just
Yeah,
blast them
but
like through 6 houses.
but it could be functional. Like I work in an area where this is it's very it's weird. So like it's very urban. You have your population of like your absolute urban, decay. And then it would like then it slowly goes into like this suburb area. Then you have your nice house, and then we actually have like state game lands where you can hunt. So like we have everything.
Okay,
And I mean you can literally, end up. I mean, most of your time you're in the obviously the most popular areas, but then I mean, there's times where you have people that are you chase a car or you look. I mean, we have to have drones out, in the woods and stuff. So you just never know what you're going to get. 9 times out of 10, where most of the stuff's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
happen. But then like when you're least expecting it, then you're going to have to be in the woods. So, but it's nice
it's.
that you can have that option. Not a lot of departments do. But I don't personally know anybody from Chicago.
I mean,
A lot of guys that when I was we attached to a I forget I can't remember the unit, but it was down in Jacksonville. A lot of cops in that unit, and Florida's wild. I mean, they nice.
I
They
mean,
got the nice Tahoes. They have the nice equipment. They have all this stuff. So sometimes, like I said, it's very different. You mean like you go from state to state, county to county, and it's just so different. But a lot of these southern states, man, they love their cars, they love their guns. So you see these sheriffs or cops in these brand new 25 Tahoes with it's all decked out, lights on top of lights.
yeah, yeah. I mean, fuck it. If they're gonna pay for it, why not? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, what do you enjoy about posting military content?
Yeah, like I said, this was, I've always obviously been in the military, law enforcement, hand in hand. I've been a fan of like, the cool stuff that, I wish I could have done and, seeing some of the things that I have done. Um, one thing, one thing I learned very quickly is that no matter how right you think you are, there's always someone on the internet that's smarter. So, just, anything I post, obviously when I started, just learning what content that people like, what content, there's many conflicts around the world, right? But, you can post one thing and people are like, what is this? And it's like a full-fledged conflict, a lot of the stuff in Sudan. And just finding what people like. I obviously I post for what I think is what interests me because I think if you start you can't post for everybody's niche and everybody's you post one video and no matter what you side with that people be in your comments or you get DMs like hey this you're a piece of shit and
Go end your life.
yeah and then you post a video that and it's a different conflict and it you have great audience, but obviously you have those people that they just want to troll. But just learning, just the content, what how to post these things, and like I said, I came from, I post a picture every once in a while on social media, so just completely learn. Like I said, that Warholics page, I mean, helped me out a lot. A lot of information. So one thing about me, I'm going to sponge everything up. If there's somebody that and I did this same thing in law enforcement. If somebody's doing something that I like and they're successful, like I'm going to learn. I'm going to ask, and I have no problem, hitting up a large account like, hey, if you have any time, like, what kind of advice could you give me, and because I don't know, I'm going to ask. I don't
Yeah,
take this
yeah.
as oh, because I mean, I don't have a million followers. I'm not this huge brand or anything. So, if I can learn something, I will. But it's kept me up to date. Just sourcing videos, finding all this information. So, I mean, not only am I producing it for obviously Instagram and the content, but I've learned so much, and I mean, it's been over a year now. It just broadens my perspective on everything. So not only is it's fun to see people engage with it, and obviously the possibilities of what you can transpire down the road, but just learning myself. So, but it's exhausting. I'll tell you that. It's exhausting mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm used to just like physical exhaust. Go out, run
Yeah.
around, chase people, whatever. And it's just like it's just like a whole different. It's literally at the end of the day, it's just posting videos. But obviously, you know, the one big thing
I
too
think
is like the restrictions. With the platform. I was on a 90-day ban, and it was like the videos. It was like it wasn't even bad. It wasn't even bad, and I'm
yeah.
like I almost lost my account. So I wish I could post the stuff that everyone wants to see. And I all the time get DMs like, "Hey man, like you post this." I'm like, I can't because I'm gonna
Yeah.
get, I'm gonna lose my account.
Someone
So
clearly dies in that video.
yeah, yeah, like and I'm not even gonna take the chance of blurring it.
Yeah.
Because it's still like I got banned on a video that there was no violence in it. It was just like and then Instagram gives you this like you look on your account and it's like, oh, these videos are flagged because of like alcohol, like just this weird AI stuff is completely wrong.
The is that like drug consumption? I have that. I
Yes,
constantly have
yes,
videos
yeah,
flagged for drug
yeah,
consumption. I'm like, what?
yeah. Sometimes I've posted a video. I mean, it was like taken down immediately with no explanation. And I'm just like, it's weird. So yeah, it's just a lot of like this. It's AI. The AI looks at
Yeah.
your content and it just gives you this BS reason. So that's been like the exhausting part, just trying to give good content, but also protect the account as well. Because, obviously you have a backup page and, but still, I mean, you lose that many followers and you lose it all, you have to restart. And I mean, that just sucks. So I'm trying to limit that, but also bring good stuff.
Yeah. You speak about getting advice from people. What's like 3 bits of advice you would have for someone who wanted to like start a similar account?
So don't be afraid to ask. I did, I thank God, I shouldn't say it, but like, thank God that these, accounts that were like, because I was, small, like, when you're smaller, people don't want to collab with you, but, hey, I send them a video and they collab just like and I'll send them a message, hey, would you mind doing this, collabing with me? And that brought in a lot of audience and, and that also brought in, like contact with that other account, talk to
Yeah.
them here and there. Yeah. So don't hesitate to ask, just be genuine. You can't learn anything if you don't ask. Stick with it. That'd be the definitely. I mean, that's just a motto of life. Stick with it. I mean, if you invest any amount of time in it, see it through. Because I remember I had that moment where I think I was at like 60 some thousand followers, and I lost like 10,000 followers. I was like within a month or something. And I was like, what? I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, is it I had no idea. Like, no matter what I was doing, like, I wasn't getting any traction. Like, the engagement was down. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like, yeah. So I just kept going. Like I said, reached out to people, get some advice, kind of just figured out like what content to post. And, you'll realize quickly because the stuff you post is going to get flagged. So, it kind of tells you what it wants. I guess, and like the third thing is just have a goal in mind of what you want to do with it. I mean, if it's a hobby, and you just like the engagement, like that's fun, but these are vessels for other things. I mean, I want to, be able to not only bring exposure because obviously like the mainstream media is absolutely garbage. I know I feel like a journalist almost. Like obviously my face is not on the account, but you're bringing. One thing was pretty funny was I shouldn't say funny, but was interesting. Like during the Israel-Iran conflict or war, like the Tehran engagement was sky high. Like like that was my number one country viewing. I mean, they were getting the news from not only me but other accounts, right? So like
Yeah.
they're getting like their real news. They're getting the real. Obviously, I don't have a microphone or anything, but just being able to see like this country now is tapping into your news because they can't trust their media. So, but if it's a hobby, it's fun. But like just kind of have a goal of what you want to do with it. I would love to, you know, use this vessel to create something, whether brand or which I started doing some merchandise, but I just want to be able to create something that everyone can relate to. So these are still in the early phases of things, but just have a goal in mind of what you want to do. Like I said, if it's a hobby, then just be good at it. But if there's, it's treat it like any piece of work. I mean, just be good at it. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes. Just stick with it. But you have a potential to touch many lives, and whether it's just people trolling, people commenting, or actually like I've had people reach out and ask just generic advice. I mean, you can do anything with it. So hopefully that sums it up. I mean, I'm still very new at this myself.
So you just touched on it, touched on what you want to do with your account, but do you want to
Yeah.
expand on that, like what your goals are?
Yeah, so this kind of keeps me up at night now. Like I've never been like an entrepreneur. I've always thought about it, right? Like I hate working for somebody. I truly do. And I hate to say it, but I mean, I feel like most people don't like, especially in law enforcement and military. I mean, you have those horrible leaders, horrible people above you that should not be there, and just kind of gets tiring over time. And I've always wanted to do my own thing, but just never knew how. And then this opportunity, got presented and, just stuck with it. But, I'm a big gun guy. I do a lot of instructions, just for law enforcement, but, I would like to use my skill set, and obviously like I like clothes, brands, a little bit of a brand tour. I hate to admit it, but I'm creating. I just did some designs for shirts. Literally, just I have my brand is Black Shepherd Supply. My dog, I have a Black Shepherd, best dog I ever had, completely named after him,
That's good.
or for him. So just into shirts right now. I'm trying to get some good designs. Once again, designs that I think would be good. Everyone has a different taste, but I'm doing stickers as well. I have an Etsy shop. Just starting small. I don't expect to blow up the next day. I'm not going to get rich off stickers, but it's just about, I want to get exposure because, like I said, every night I try to go to bed and I'm just like, what can I do? Like, how can I expand? Whether that's, hosting my own firearms courses and bringing people in, or, doing some kind of, consulting, obviously like with being in Gitmo was around a lot of anti-terrorism, and just having that background, did some stuff with the FBI here in that fashion, some local stuff. And, whether it's consulting, like kind of like a penetration testing on sites and stuff like that. Just had that. I mean, I think that's a very big thing now with all this, especially here in the U.S., right? Like the threats of terrorism, whether it's domestic, or foreign. I mean, it's just talked about all the time. You get these intel briefs, whether it's legit or not, but these venues, like, whether, hey, go these big stadiums or venues, like actually have people go in and during an event that, are consulting that actually try to, break in or not break in, but just infiltrate it, and
Yeah, or like
just,
red team it out a bit.
yeah, like a cybersecurity thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah. So just penetrate it. And, I'm sure that's going to be a funny one, but, yeah, just things like that. These are things that I think I can use my skill set to. And just there's so many avenues. Just kind of going with the flow. I don't expect to, like I just have ideas at this point, and I don't hold this like how do I want to say like I don't expect a certain amount of success by tomorrow. I know
yeah,
everything starts. It just takes work. So, but just just bringing that brand at least out. Just trying to, yeah, at least from that side of it. Obviously the war shorts, it's its own thing, but just starting with shirts and designs are coming, and hats and stuff that we all like. And
yeah.
hopefully the people that see it, like, oh, this is a pretty cool design. And like I said, not looking to get rich off a sticker, but just have that exposure and just build that way, slowly but surely, and find something here.
That's how I started selling merch, was with like small things, because
Yeah.
you've got to learn the systems as well, like how it actually works. So that you
Yeah.
can't just like start a page and then suddenly start selling shit. Like it's not that simple. Like I remember
Yeah.
the first time I tried to send like a shirt to my mate in the US, it got bounced because I didn't do the
Mhm.
right like customs declarations.
Yeah.
Just small things like that where it's like if you don't practice or you don't like at least try, you're never gonna learn something like that.
So I do my own stickers and I bought all the equipment for it. But I'm very very picky about. Oh, I know that hurt. I I'm very picky about with what I like, right? So I'm just very anal. It's just who I am. So I wanted to launch at least the stickers in January, and I just like trial and error. I mean, I'm serious. Like I had so many designs that once again people probably would love, but I just didn't like them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd print them out, you know, learning the software, learning how to design stuff, and lamination, all the little things that go into it that I was messing up. But then it just like would throw the design away. So, but I finally found that time where I was comfortable, and which was like I think I launched my stickers like a month, 2 months ago. I'm not sure, but I'm just very picky with things. So
That's cool. That's awesome though. Ah,
yeah,
nice.
but it's good. I
Right.
mean, definitely having some traction now. You know, not telling yeah, and that's one thing I look at. Like, how many times do I click on something? I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool shirt, but I'm not buying it. Not now. So
Yeah.
you see the stats, the views and stuff, and not everybody buys, and I don't expect that. Like I said, my biggest thing is just if you like it, grab it. And but I just want to just build a brand in a way. And, not and that I don't think I'll ever be like Nike, but obviously within law enforcement and military community, that's my focus. I mean, we all love patches, we all love stickers and shirts and hats.
To echo what you just said around people clicking and looking without buying, my conversion rate is around 2% on Shopify. So,
Yeah,
yeah. It's,
yeah. It kind of is like you look at it, and you're like, oh, that
it's,
sucks, but
I mean, what the fuck happened on June 12th? June the 12th, I had like 500% more people look at my shop.
yeah. I mean that's like my Etsy store. I get once again I Warholics helped me out a lot because I mean just kind of I mean he's had amazing success with it. So just like, hey, I'm stupid. Like when it comes to
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like, I don't even look on like I ask my wife, hey, can you find this? Like I don't even like to look online sometimes because I'm like, this is overwhelming. But I mean, it just apparently, took all his advice, obviously create my own stuff, but just like the Etsy store alone, like you see, you have a couple thousand views, but then you only have so many orders. But you know, one thing I will tell you, it's been very eye opening because some of the people I didn't I honestly none of my friends even knew that I ran this account. I mean, I had friends that would that followed the account, and once because I launched on my personal, which I don't have thousands of followers on my personal account and barely have anybody, but I just tagged my War Shorts account and they're like, dude, you run that? I'm like, yeah, but
That's,
some of the people that you would expect to support don't, you know,
yeah, yeah.
and then some of the people that you barely talk to, and it's like, hey man, like how's it going? It starts conversation. You're like, dude, I did not expect for you to buy something. I mean, that's awesome, and they're willing to support it. And like, oh man, I'm going to show this to my buddies, and I'm gonna wear this out in the range. And it's like, but some of your closest people, people you work with, it's like, wow. So it's been
Exactly.
eye opening in different, like many different aspects. And it's not like I'm gonna walk in tomorrow and just be like, yeah, you didn't buy a sticker, I don't like you. But be nice if you at least just support it. So, but it's
Yeah.
just funny how things work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely no. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's
Oh
been it's
well.
been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. No, it's a fun road, man. It's a bit of a roller coaster, but it's all good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
an
yeah. Because at first,
interesting
I mean,
hobby.
I was like I said when I first started, I was very stressed out about like posting. Because I was so new. I'm like how do I how many should I post a day? When times the audience engage? Like I'm like that was like the overwhelming part on top of finding the good content. But now, it's just kind of normal. And once again, it ebbs and flows with the conflicts because obviously, like like those 2 weeks of Israel and Iran, I mean, it was just like content. I mean, you couldn't even post it all. It's so
Yeah,
much. But now, when things die down, it's like okay, and everyone's kind of off that high, and
we're
now we
now
got to
back.
find like good,
Yeah,
like and then you got to start pulling some things, and it's just that makes it a little bit more difficult. And I mean, I support, like I said, I try to. I definitely love like collabing with other accounts. And I don't like to use other people's stuff. Like I'll scroll the feed a couple times, and if I see a couple accounts post the same video, I won't.
yeah,
Because a lot of the people that follow me follow those accounts, and vice
yeah.
versa.
That's
So, and
exactly
I
it,
don't want to
right?
be like redundant. So, I try not to step on toes. I
Yeah,
respect everybody's account. I mean, obviously, there's so many videos that we all post because they're just that good. But
yeah, yeah,
just those are the things, just navigating and trying to be respectful of other people's, work.
yeah. I totally feel that. It's definitely a way to be. All right. Well, I'll stop stealing your time and let you go look after your kids. But do you want
Gosh,
to just?
you know what? She knew. I swear to God, these kids know when I'm doing something because she's usually lights out, and I can
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
drop a plate and break it, and she wouldn't wake up, and she's like, my dad's doing something different. So
Something's going on. Something to get up.
yeah, hopefully that doesn't mess up the
No,
audio
it'll
too
be
much.
fine, man. It'll be fine. I can. It'll be sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to shout anything out before we finish? I'll tag all your stuff down below as well. But
I mean, like I said, I shouted Warholics out. I'll shout him out again. I mean, obviously, that awesome dude helped me out a lot, helped me a lot, grow. I mean, your account also helped me collab, and the people like Northern Provisions, Analyze, Educate, Keg and Dunlap, all those guys that are a lot bigger than me that allowed me to collaborate with them and learn from them whether they know it or not. But just want to shout them out, and I appreciate that. But also, yeah, man, if you like my designs, you like my sticker, buy a shirt. Like I said, it helped me out. Just looking to, just get exposed out there.
I'll tag your Etsy account down below so people can check it out. But yeah, thank you very
All
much
right.
for chatting with me.
All right. I
I'll see
appreciate it.
you. No worries.